It's very easy when you're running your own charity to be a single cause enthusiast. You're existing in a bubble. Whereas coming together in the network, you can see there's a bigger picture. That sense of collegiate working. So many of the participants tell me that when they were at school, teachers would say, "Oh, well, this is not for you." Nice. Whereas they did want to take part, and who wouldn't? Certain organisations should be doing what I'm doing, but they're not.
Welcome to another episode of the Leading Communities podcast, a platform where we help develop discussions on topics vital to local communities, offering insights from both leadership perspectives and the community's viewpoint. Join us as we explore the issues, stories and experiences that shape our communities and inspire change. Now, in this episode, we'll explore the inspiring journey behind the Sandwell Networkers Group and the challenges faced in building this creative community, as well as considering the vision that they have for the future. And joining me to do that is Richard Flatley, a dedicated activist and networker based in Sandwell. He's the founder of the Sandwell Networkers Group and which has grown to over 500 members, connecting third sector organisations across the area. But in addition to that, he's also the vice chair of Sandwell Visually Impaired, where he champions inclusive arts projects, and he's also the chair of Friends of Creative Arts. Thank you so much for joining me, Richard. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for welcoming me onto this podcast.
Thank you. Now, let's start with the Sandwell Networkers Group. Just tell us a little bit about your journey in setting it up and what it's become today.
Well, there was originally a group that fell into abeyance, a West Bromwich Networkers Group. And I felt that was such a good group, and it used to get between 5 and 15 people who used to attend every month. And I felt that should be continued. And after it stopped for a couple of months, I started it up again, based in West Bromwich Town Hall. And since that time, and it was about 10 years ago, it was about 10 people at the start, but regularly our meetings are between 30 and 40 people that attend our meetings now. And since West Bromwich Town Hall is shut for refurbishment, I've been running it at West Smethwick Park Pavilion, which is a delightful building, close to, in between Smethwick and West Brom. So,
what's the purpose of the group? What do you come together to discuss every month?
It's a forum for people to tell others within Sandwell of what their community group or charity does, who they are and what their main projects are. And I chair it, and I also write the minutes for it. So consequently, I quite often know more about what they do than they can often express themselves.
Yeah.
So I do have to prompt them, telling them to tell people about the other things that they do as well. And it is a forum for people to, there's time, it's a 2-hour meeting. There's a break in between, and we gather about half an hour before the start of the meeting at 9:30 to 10 o'clock. And then we have a break halfway through at 11 to 11:15. And then afterwards there's a half an hour or so that people can do networking. a lot of networking goes on. And so, yeah.
So is it a space that you find people are able to connect and maybe collaborate on some of the things they're doing?
Yeah, it's a very friendly space, and I try and encourage the attitude that you're amongst friends. And it is a room, you're in a room where there's 30 or 40 people who want to do good for people.
Yeah.
And it really is a beneficent feeling. And it was almost spiritual when we came back from lockdown about how much people enjoyed being in a room with other like-minded people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, we've got some really gifted speakers as well, and quite charismatic people. And, you know, they can mark the passage of time, and also, like we have had over the past couple of weeks, a difficult thing in public uprising and things like that. And a friend, his name's James Lynch as well, and he represents Sandwell Church's Link, addressed the group and tried to bring them together in a spirit of unity, and saying that we must act together.
Yeah, sounds positive.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about maybe some of the achievements that have been made as a consequence of the group coming together and forging maybe these collaborations and these relationships, maybe one or two examples?
Well, in the case of James Lynch, he runs a clothes bank where he's forged a link with a clothes supplier and shoes and trainers, and to distribute these, he works with. He told me at the last meeting, he works with 27 groups.
Wow!
And he wouldn't have any groups without coming to the meeting, and so those groups are all being garnered through associations that he's made with the meeting. And that's pretty much the same for a lot of people as well. We've had a recent group in the last couple of weeks called Outside the Box, and there are a couple of Polish ladies, Polish artists and performance artists and fine artists that have run a big community event successfully for women, and they called it a tea party, but there was a lot of fine art in it as well. So, and that was very successful, but as a result of coming along to the meeting, and also I provide a Facebook. It's closed, and I monitor who comes on. And I must admit, I turned down 50% of the applications because I don't believe they're appropriate for the group, and people are selling things. And it is for people who are providing services to the community for the benefit of the community. And so people can promote their projects and what they've got going on it. And you mentioned that we have over 500. Well, actually, it's over 650 now.
Okay.
That when I do the minutes of each meeting, I send out a report of what people have said, a brief listing, a list of attendees and their contact details, and that is sent out to over 600 people.
That's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit, because there's clearly power in relationships, and I think that's what your group really represents, and shows how much change people can make when there's that level of collaboration, and also the level of knowledge, them knowing, as you say, about each other, what they're doing, and that gives ideas on how they can work and serve serve each other and serve the community. But let's talk a little bit about your passion for the arts, because there's a couple of groups that you're also involved with where it's very much about inclusivity when it comes to the arts. Let's start with Friends of Creative Arts. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, if I may, could I double back on Sandwell Networkers Group?
Okay.
Because the very nature of charities, very often they're one-man bands, and a lot of these groups have developed out of one-man bands, and it's very easy when you're running your own charity to be a single cause enthusiast. And you're existing in a bubble, and all you can see is your own particular concerns, be it a illness or a particular illness or a particular demographic group or things like that. Whereas coming together in the network, you can see there's a bigger picture, and that sense of collegiate working, to work in a combined way to get to your objective, I think has proved very useful for people. So moving on to creative arts, it's been a bit of a passion project for me, really. When I finished a particular one of my jobs, and I was working for a charity, and I was a community engagement officer. I was looking to fill time volunteering in the community, and there were 3 areas that I looked at. One was community activism, which I'm interested in building community and community growth. The other was mental health, and working mental health. So I volunteered for Rethink, which has a basis in Dudley as well. And I used to come here a night a week for 3 or 4 years. And then the other was working with people with physical and learning difficulties as well, and that's the one that I stuck with for the longest, and I'm still associated with that group, and it's a passion, and I'm deeply involved with them, and I've worked very hard to ensure that the service was continued, because it was under great threat during lockdown.
Right.
And I did a lot of finagling behind the scenes to work with commissioners, and sometimes you really got to get into people's faces, to make sure that things happen. And I'm quite proud that that they had an open day a couple of weeks ago, which I went to, and it's thriving again. So I can't tell you what an achievement it is, and that Sandwell does this, because Birmingham certainly doesn't do it, and certainly doesn't provide this service for people with disability that Sandwell Council provides. So, bravo to Sandwell Council.
No, indeed. What difference do you find it makes to people's lives?
Oh, tremendous difference, and interest, and I know how much respect they're treated with, and we had a publication that they produced as well, which is great, and I love the person-centered approach of the whole group. and I love the people who run it, I'm still deeply associated with it. Unfortunately, it's the people that attend it are of a certain age now, and there are a number of people that pass away through natural causes, but and it does seem to be, I'm going to too many funerals, but I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, indeed. Let's talk a little bit about Sandwell Visually Impaired, the organisation you vice chair. Again, a bit about that organisation and the impact it's having on people.
Right. Well, I was co-opted onto it because I was helping out with SCVO, which is a Sandwell Centre for Voluntary Organisations, and going into third sector organisations and seeing what help I could provide in terms of advice, and they were one of them. And even before I told them I had visual impairment myself, because I've got diabetic retinopathy and I had a number of eye operations. But I was really very much taken by the way that the organisation, although the two leading characters of the organisation are blind, then they're not on the back foot. Right. They're very much on the front foot. And they do more activities than I know of any other group that are operating in Sandwell. And they quite often do more art projects than any other group that I know in Sandwell. And, and I've run a number of art projects for them. And, so many of the participants tell me that when they were at school, teachers would say to them, "Oh, well, this is not for you. Go to another room and listen to some music or something." Right. Whereas they did want to take part, and who wouldn't, And so it's been challenging in some ways of working out how to get people involved. But I found that you can add scents to paints to, so people can associate, like a strawberry scent with red, or and an orange scent with orange and things like that. Lemon for yellow, and it's just an idea, but it's been something, and it's been interesting.
You're clearly someone who's very driven to support your community wherever you can.
I'm a deeply lazy person.
Well, I was just going to ask you, what drives you?
I've got a feeling that I should be doing something. I want to make a difference. And I can be quite a persuasive personality as well. And I'm quite driven. I'm not afeard of anybody, and I can make good associations with leaders, and if I do have something to say, I'll say it, And I'm been fortunate to be given that opportunity, and with working with so many groups. That's given me an advantage that I know the territory, and I'm very fond of Sandwell as well, So I hope that my passion for it has come across in some ways.
Absolutely, and I hope that it's recognised that that's the case. You mentioned previously that there are many people that you find to be inspirational and feel that they're people with things to offer Sandwell as well. You want to tell us about who some of those people are?
I did make a couple of notes before I came along today because I think that, that, well, I just talked through. There's an organisation that's based in Dudley called Just Straight Talk.
Okay.
And the person that founded it, her name's Kate Beale, Beale, and she's a very charismatic person, and she's driven, and I really like it. And and they really had a very small startup, like from £500 or something like that, and from that now the turnover is well over £1 million. And she has a person called Chris Jones working for them, and he's got a Tigger bounce.
Right.
He's really, I really like him. He's so smart as well, and he's a musician as well. I think he lived, busking on the streets of France for a couple of years, and so it's interesting. Another person that really I'm inspired by is Rachel Conlisk, and Rachel runs Creative Active Lives, and so much of the activities that she runs are for children. Originally she was a hula hooper, and she does bubbles as well, but she also runs circus workshops, and she runs Minecraft workshops, but that particularly are helpful to people who have autistic children. James Lynch, I mentioned, runs Sandwell Church's Link, which has 250 church spaces and within Sandwell, and he runs. It's got a clothing bank and so many other things, and and I find, and when I've through illness and other things had problems running Sandwell Networkers Group, he stepped in for me, which has been great. And Nick Shaw he works in public health for Sandwell, and he organises a number of events where people with lived experience of drugs and alcohol and other things attend, and other organisations, and you get to find out how help is available within the community, and there is redemption. That sense that there's a way out.
Yeah. Where do you see the future for not just the groups that you are a part of, including, of course, Sandwell Networkers Group, but also just the future for Sandwell as an area that has so much good work going on within it and so much philanthropy happening?
I like working with the college, Sandwell College, and Sandwell College has grown enormously because it's now 8,000 students, because they've taken over Bourneville as well.
Oh, I see.
So it's quite something, and they've taken a particular interest in coming along to my group to find out about the charities that work in this community. So they make this knowledge available to their students, and I see that as a way forward. So and letting people know it's there, because a lot of people don't know it's there. I'd have to admit that certain organisations should be doing what I'm doing. should be doing it, but they're not. And so they're paid enormous amount of money to do it, and they don't do it.
Are you hopeful, though, that moving forward, people will take some of the example that you've set and move forward with it?
I'd like to view it like a relay race and something like a baton. I'd like to hand it on to somebody to do it, but I can't even get people to take minutes for me, really. So I'm not doing very well on that basis. But there again, perhaps I don't ask for help that much. And also, I'm not beholden to anybody. So I can run it the way that I see fit, which might seem dictatorial, but I think I'm quite benign, so.
Well, clearly you've been doing a lot of positive work. You've brought a lot of good people together, and through those collaborations and through the passion that you've shown, I mean, you made a point earlier where you said you'd like to think you're making a difference. It seems to me that you very much are making a difference. So let's hope that through people being more aware of what you're doing, what's happening, that they will start off and write those minutes for you, Richard, and then when you're ready to pass on that baton, be ready to take on that responsibility.
Well, yes, I'd like to take up some new challenges, and things, and because I think somebody should. Really.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been really interesting to hear about the work that you do.
I very rarely, if ever, talk about what I do. So thank you for asking.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Leading Communities podcast. It's very clear here that we have in Richard a gentleman who is and has been leading the charge for some time. And as he says, maybe it's time to think about passing the baton on to someone else. So hopefully through hearing his story and the changes that it has made for his communities and Sandwell as a whole, it inspires you to firstly take those minutes, but then secondly, pick up the baton. Come back for another episode real soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to keep up to date with all things leading communities.